this is the first time there has been a US military attack on the South American mainland. Until now, we have had such attacks on Mexico, on Central America, on the Caribbean, attacking, bombing Caracas, capital city of 3 million, and kidnapping the president and his wife, President Maduro, breaks new ground. A certain threshold has been crossed. We are into uncharted waters, and there's great uncertainty as to what will happen next. Much was made of the fact that Venezuela was an authoritarian regime. Well, now it turns out even Latin American established democracies like Mexico, like Colombia, are not exempted from a possible targeting by the United States and being attacked as well.
Thank you so much for joining ANI. My first question is, of course, on the development which took place in Venezuela, the US action on Venezuela. What's your analysis? How do you read that?
Well, I read it the following way. There have been many US interventions in Latin America in the course of the past couple of centuries. But this one is different. Why is it different? It is different because this is the first time there has been a US military attack on the South American mainland. Until now, we have had such attacks on Mexico, on Central America, on the Caribbean. The latest one, of course, was the one in Panama in 1989. But this one, in attacking, bombing Caracas, capital city of 3 million, and kidnapping the president and his wife, President Maduro, breaks new ground. A certain threshold has been crossed. We are into uncharted waters, and there's great uncertainty as to what will happen next.
Talking about the US policy on Latin America, we have seen President Trump comment on Cuba as well. And although he has also spoken about Greenland, but towards the Latin America, how do you read the policy? What's your takeaway, sir? What's your analysis in that one?
Yes, of course. Well, the problem with what has happened in Venezuela is that it looks like it's not going to be a one-off, like, for example, what had happened in Panama some years ago. But it may be the beginning of something else. President Trump referenced he referenced Colombia and Mexico and said that their leaders better watch out. And Secretary of State Marco Rubio referenced Cuba, saying the same about Cuba. So we might be in for follow-up actions against these countries. And, for much was made of the fact that Venezuela was an authoritarian regime. Well, now it turns out even Latin American established democracies like Mexico, like Colombia, are not exempted from a possible targeting by the United States and being attacked as well.
Sir, this matter was taken up with UNSC as well. What would be your expectation from UN, if I may ask you?
Of course. Well, the US invasion of Panama and the kidnapping of President Noriega at the time was condemned by the United Nations, but nothing much happened. At the UN Security Council meeting yesterday, a number of countries spoke forcefully, but many were rather bland. I was particularly struck by the timidness of the European reaction. Greenland might be next, and yet the European countries looked with remarkable equanimity at this attack on Venezuela, not realizing that they might be next in line, and Greenland might be the subject of a US takeover. So we're moving here into a very different world, a world in which might makes right, the law of the jungle, and it's quite unclear, how this will be approached by the international community. One would have expected a much stronger reaction from the international community. Russia, China, Iran, Brazil, Mexico, Colombia, Chile have condemned this attack, but many other countries have not. So this is very concerning.
This brings me to the last question. You were also the Chilean ambassador to India as well. What would be expectation from India regarding this development from your side?
Well, I would expect India to condemn this attack on Venezuela by the United States. A basic rule of a system based on the United Nations and international law is that the use of force by one state against another is something that is banned. It is not accepted. There's only a very narrow exception for that rule, and that is when you act in self-defense. But there was no armed attack by Venezuela on the United States. The argument that drug trafficking from Venezuela to the United States was the cause for this is something that does not hold water. There's not a single boat with fentanyl that has been detained in the Caribbean. Venezuela is not a major producing nor drug exporting country. So this is all a bogus claim. What the United States is really after is after Venezuelan oil.
Going forward, sir, what would be your piece of advice for the region, and also how do you look at the development or the development going forward? What's your estimate?
Sure. Well, with my colleagues Fortino Nominami, we have a new book that came out a few months ago. It's called The Non-Aligned World, Striking Out in an Era of Great Power Competition. And we make the case for what we call active non-alignment. And that in this world of very strong contrast between the United States and China, countries in the global south should aim to protect their own interests and not let themselves be pressured by the great powers. So my sense is that what has happened in Venezuela on Saturday only reinforces the notion that our countries must stand up for their rights, must stand up for their sovereignty, and not let themselves be pressured by the great powers.
Thank you so much, Excellency, for your time.
Thank you.